Hello. Welcome to Portal's Portfolio series, where we will have readings and interviews with student writers and published authors from Vancouver Island University and around the country. We'll talk with them about what it takes to be a writer in the ever-changing world of publishing. Portal 2021 is currently being designed by Chantal Calitz, and all 104 gorgeous color pages will be shipped off to the printer on March 24th. It'll be on newsstands in late May. Stay tuned for information about our 30th anniversary virtual launch to be live streamed on Facebook in mid-April. It'll feature contributor readings and merch such as new t-shirts, mugs, and book bags to mark 3 decades of publishing in the heart of Vancouver Island. I am very pleased to welcome to the Portfolio series, Emily Gain. Emily is a third-year student at Vancouver Island University in the creative writing program, where I have been lucky enough to have been in a number of courses with her, including the 4th-year novel course we are both currently in. Emily writes fiction, creative nonfiction, and poetry. Her poem titled Under Their Heels was published last year in Portal 2020, and she has 2 pieces that are about to be published in this year's Portal issue, her second poem titled Carried Away, and a short fiction piece titled Someplace Warm. Today, Emily joins me from her home in the thriving metropolis of Lantzville, just down the road from where I am. And so please welcome Emily Gain. Welcome to the Portfolio series.
Hi, Joe. Thanks so much. I'm so excited to have my stuff in Portal again this year.
Awesome. Your stuff is popular with Portal last year and now 2 pieces this year. So for writing, creative writing in general, when did you start getting into creative writing and what drew you to writing?
It's a little cliche, but I feel like I've kind of always been a writer. I think most writers start as readers, and I've always been a huge reader. When I was a kid, I just devoured books, and I did a lot of journaling too. So I think writing kind of just bloomed naturally from there. When I was considering university, I knew I wanted to do some post-secondary stuff, but I wasn't really set on what, but I knew I liked writing. So I thought I'd just try a couple classes, and immediately I was hooked, especially with the VIU classes. The workshops are awesome. You learn a lot and you get to experiment with your work, which has been really great for me. And it's helped me a lot with confidence and just kind of being courageous enough to actually share my work and get it out there. So it's been good.
Have you submitted a lot of your work?
It's been great having my work in Portal. I've submitted elsewhere to some other literary magazines and such, but like most writers, lots of rejection letters coming in.
Nice. Last year, you and I were in Poetry 100 class. Was that the first poetry class that you had taken?
Through VIU, yes. I have taken some classes through Quw'utsun as well, so I took some poetry there. And I've been fortunate enough last summer, I took another class under Spencer Smith, who's a VIU creative writing grad as well. So that was a great experience.
Awesome. How did you discover the crew program at VIU? Like what brought you into that?
Well, like I said, I did start at Quw'utsun when I was in Victoria, just kind of trying out a few classes. And through the classes there, I just kind of realized I really enjoyed taking the writing classes. And I was making the move to Nanaimo anyways for family and such. So I was kind of looking into how I could keep going with that because I knew it was something I wanted to pursue. So looking at VIU, I just saw that they had a really great variety of classes and really great professors there. I'd heard some great things, so I took a chance and I'm really glad I did.
Awesome. Well, you have a short fiction story that is going to be published in the Portal 2021 coming up. Would you please read a passage from Someplace Warm?
Absolutely. Okay, so this is from Someplace Warm, and this is starting from the beginning. Is it sleeping or dead? The mouse's face was buried in the grass, tiny paws covering its eyes. Its gray body curled into a tight ball, as if hiding from the January frost. It must have frozen to death, Celia thought. What a horrible way to die. Celia crouched for a better look. Its fur was damp and ears rosy pink. The chilly wind caused her to blink and wipe her eyes, and then she saw the mouse's head twitch ever so slightly. Or had she? She blinked again and willed the little gray body to unfold, shiver, or give some sign of life. Hello, little one, she whispered. Are you still awake? She held her breath, but the mouse remained still. I'm seeing things, Celia thought. It had been weeks since she had gotten a proper night's sleep. Behind her, Celia heard the patio door sliding open. What are you looking at? Asked Michael. A mouse. I think it's dead, but I'm not sure. Well, don't touch it. Those things carry diseases. Celia straightened her legs and turned towards her husband. He leaned on the door, looking small and tired. His brown slippers were separating at the seams, and his white socks poked through. What if it is alive? Shouldn't we help it? It's just a mouse, Celia. Leave it and come inside. You're going to catch cold. Celia looked at the creature again, then turned away, picking up the bag of groceries she had left on the garden path. Inside, Celia made turkey sandwiches and tomato soup. Michael took his lunch to his office, leaving Celia at the table alone. She peeled off the crust on the sandwich, bit by bit, thinking about the mouse. After lunch, she washed the dishes, wiped down the counters, and swept the floor. She fluffed the pillows on the sofa and sat down, staring at her reflection in the black TV screen. If it's still alive, I need to put it someplace warm. Celia stood up and tried to distract herself. Beside the bookshelf was one of Michael's paintings. She looked at it closely, following the lines of each brushstroke. Ocean waves met the sand, swirling and crashing and foaming. She could taste the salt on her tongue. Michael had given the painting to her on their first wedding anniversary 4 years ago. They had met when Michael was in his last year of art school and she was waiting tables near the college. He had a habit of sketching on the napkins and she had a habit of keeping them. It didn't take long for him to notice. She took a step back from the painting. I need to get it someplace warm, like a box. Michael's office door was closed and she could hear vigorous typing within. This was her chance. Celia paced the house searching for a box, something small but breathable. She pulled a shoebox out of recycling, but it was too big and wet in one corner. She rummaged through the bathroom cupboard. Nothing. She stared at the 4 white doors of the hallway. Bedroom, bathroom, office, and Celia's eyes lingered on the last door. Somehow it seemed larger than the others, older. A deep ache bloomed in her chest and she shook her head. No, she couldn't go in there. Finally, Celia spotted a box of light bulbs on top of the fridge. She lifted the lid, pulled out the 2 bulbs, and rotated the small box in her hands. It was perfect. She stuffed it with toilet paper to create a warm nest. She pulled on her gardening gloves, jacket, and boots. The sun was setting and the air was getting cooler. Celia shivered as she walked along the garden path. Hello, little one, she whispered as she came upon the mouse. I'm going to pick you up, okay? She used her thumb and forefinger to lift the tiny body. It was stiff, and Celia held her breath, preparing for the underside to be filled with maggots. Instead, as she turned it over, she saw a smooth, soft belly and a delicate pink nose. She placed the mouse in the box and loosely closed the lid. She placed it in the dry gap between the side of the house and the firewood stack. That night, Celia lay in bed, staring at the dark ceiling. She hugged herself, trying to stop her shoulders from trembling. Michael snorted softly, and her mind wandered down the hall to the 4th door.
Thank you very much. There's that line, she placed it in the dry gap between the side of the house and the firewood stack. And when I first read that, kept wondering why was that detail in there? But then there's this kind of subtext of filling in gaps. Like she stuffs the box with toilet paper to create a nest, and even the husband's slippers that are separating at the seams with the white socks. There's a subtext of gaps that are being filled in, which is really runs throughout the piece, which is really interesting. What for your own writing process, what is your daily writing practice like?
Well, I think that varies day to day. I'd love to be able to say I'm a writer that gets up at 6 a.m. every morning and pounds out 2,000 words and calls it a day, but that's not so realistic for me. It's been really helpful being in writing classes at VIU because that keeps me on a schedule and keeps me writing, I'd like to say almost every day. So yeah, I like to try every day, maybe every second day, to try to get a few thousand words on the page, either for assignments or side projects that I have going.
Do you write in spurts, do you find, or do you just chip away each day?
Yeah, definitely more in spurts, kind of when the deadlines keep creeping up. I'm a bit of a procrastinator, so the pressure helps to get those words on the page.
Yeah, I find like if I'm writing, say, nonfiction, I'll usually do it mostly on my computer. But when I'm writing poetry and sometimes fiction, I'll write in a notebook with pen first and then start putting it into a computer. How is your process? Do you do notebooks or just straight into the computer?
Yeah, mine's actually pretty similar. When it comes to assignments or kind of anything like long form, like fiction and nonfiction, I do it a lot more on the computer just for ease. But when it comes to kind of just random inspiration or little side things that I'm working on, or poetry especially, most of that stuff ends up just pen and paper in the notebook. And if I see it turning into something great, then I get it on my computer to do the editing and stuff.
For our novel class this term, we had to create writing plans. And that's the first time I've done that for a story. I'm more of an explorer. Are you, what do they call it, a pantser or a planner? Which, when you're doing a story?
I am not a pantser. I am a planner all the way. Outlines are my best friend, and sometimes my enemy too, because sometimes I can get so caught up on the outline and getting all the details perfect that I forget that I'm actually supposed to be doing the writing part of it. But I get there eventually. But definitely, I'm a planner and an outliner down at the core.
Oh, I'm surprised by that because someplace warm kind of struck me as I would have thought that would have been more of a pantser kind of story, like an exploration. But
Yeah, it's a
so
good
you
catch.
had,
That story is actually one of the only ones that I didn't know where the heck I was going with it, and I changed it so many times. And I was actually very frustrated with the story when I was about halfway through because I hadn't planned it, and that was so unnormal for me. And I was kind of just figuring it out as I went along, and it ended up turning out great. But it definitely wasn't the regular routine that I take. So good catch.
for our novel class, you're working on a YA novel. Do you have that one pretty well planned out? Are you sticking to the plan, or is that a?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of outlining for it. That YA novel is something I've had in my head and some of it on paper for years. It's kind of like my fun project that I keep coming back to on the side when I get stressed out by the more serious stuff. But yeah, I've done a lot of outlining, but of course, as you're writing, things always veer one direction or another, and things just kind of come up naturally as you go. So you're always having to adjust.
Yeah, I know. My stories go all over the place. Sometimes I have to figure out, I have to give them meaning later, try and bring it back around.
For sure.
um, so last year you had a poem published, which I found interesting because you and I were in the first year poetry program or course last year, and then the deadline was right after that, and you got your poem published. But you and I were in the same workshop group, and I don't remember seeing that poem in workshop. Was that one that you wrote that I just missed, or?
Yeah, that one actually was written for that class originally, but working with the editors and doing a lot of rewrites, it definitely looks a lot different than the original now. I think it's grown a lot in strength when now it's been published. But yeah, I can't remember because I know with that class, we weren't sharing every week. I think it was like on alternating weeks we'd workshop each other's work. So that might have been on a week we missed the workshopping for it. But yeah, that one was born in that intro to poetry class, and Sonnet helped with a lot of feedback on that one.
Oh, good. I know I submitted one of my poems as well from that class, but it didn't. I submitted a list poem, but it didn't make it. But I remember in class, your poems were so good. I kept bugging you that you're already a professional poet, and here you are in first year poetry, and then you got your poem published right away, which is awesome. And for this year, you have a new poem being published titled "Carried Away." Would you be able to read from "Carried Away"?
Yeah, I absolutely will. Yes, so this poem is called Carried Away. Blue herons glide over my backyard like fighter jets. They soar, prideful, towards the rolling ocean. A man named Doug is expanding his house across the road. It's almost done, he says. The racket will be over soon. The herons perch in their nests and keep watch. Their cries mix with the screech of Doug's table saw, and my head pounds with the dull thud of his nail gun. The birds are at war, Doug says. He tells me he saw an eagle swoop down and carry away the heron's young. That's nature, he says, dusting off his overalls. Each morning, I watch the herons depart for the battlefield. I wonder who is guarding their nests and for how long. How long before the spruce trees are replaced by basketball hoops and ocean views? The war will wage on, but the noise will cease, and the guilty will finally get some sleep.
Thank you. That's it's really interesting. The birds are at war, Doug says, but then later on it's the guilty, but the guilty is the people replacing nature with basketball hoops. And you have this, for both poems, you have this kind of interaction between nature and human development, and how it's kind of like a war. I think what wasn't this poem, the first working title was just war.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reference to war in your poem from last year as well. This poem is written in quatrains, which is four line stanzas. And last year your poem also had quite a few quatrains. What is it about quatrains that you like?
It's a little hard to say. I like to write poetry in a lot of forms, but I don't know. I think sometimes when you're writing, there's just a natural feel and a flow. Maybe it just fits my voice the best, or just comes most naturally to me. I think when I wrote this one, it was a little bit all over the place. It was kind of just notes in my notebook, and I think when I submitted it, I had a lot of 4-line stanzas, but then I had some 2s and 3s, and it was a little messy. But working on it with the editors at Portal, they were really helpful, and they helped me get it into those quatrains. And yeah, it definitely is a lot stronger this way. And I think as I write more poetry, I'm realizing that that's a good form for my voice, and it suits it well.
The reason I caught that is because I often purposely write in quatrains, because I find that it's a nice little box to really contain one thought. Mm-hmm. If you start to go longer than that, then your thought might wander. Or if it's 2 lines, it gets a bit short. But quatrains seem to be just a nice little package for a thought. Mm-hmm. The theme of nature overlapping with humans and nature losing out, does that stem from sort of your childhood, or things you've noticed on the island, or is that something that really catches your attention when you're going around?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a recurring theme in a lot of the poetry I write, and I think that just comes definitely from growing up on Vancouver Island and just seeing all the gorgeous nature that we have around here. And you encounter a lot of people that are really appreciative of it, and some people that aren't. Most of my poetry comes from just things around me that I'm experiencing and seeing. Like this story is pretty much directly from experiences in my neighborhood. Like we live on a beautiful property in Upper Lantzville right now, and we've got a great view of the ocean. And then on the other side of the street, we have this big forested area behind my neighbor's house, and it's just full of heron nests. Like it really is. So it's really cool, and I think they're just majestic creatures. But I didn't realize till we moved into this house how loud they actually are, especially in the summer. And so, I love it. I think it's awesome, but some of the neighbors aren't quite so tolerant of it. But I always just find it a little ironic because, Lantzville's such a quiet community, but it's growing too. And there's always some kind of construction and stuff going on, and just noises everywhere in this place that we expected to be quiet. And, I just find it ironic.
Especially that Doug guy. Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that the birds are at war. So it's kind of like the eagles versus the great blue herons, but it's actually the humans are kind of at war with the birds, mm-hmm. replacing them with basketball hoops and ocean views with a question mark. That's interesting. The question mark is that ocean views with a question mark because it won't be an ocean view for long when someone else builds in front of your own place. That kind of pops into my head with that line.
Yeah, it can definitely be read like that. I think it's mostly just a question of how long, like not so much of will it happen, but more inevitably all these areas will develop if it's not stopped by somebody. And it's just, the birds have no control.
Yeah. Would you like to read from your poem from last year, the Under Their Heels?
Sure, I can read that one too. It was published last year in Portal 2020 in this beautiful edition. I'm so happy to have it in there. So this one is called Under Their Heels. Benjamin gingerly scoops translucent tentacles into a flimsy net, watches as the jellyfish plunges and bobs in a cool bucket of water, exploring infinity along an endless circle wall. We gently extend our own fingers into its bulbous mass, watch it recoil and expand in salutation. Hours pass until the sky turns and mother calls. Saltwater stings our blistered hands as we return our ally to the sea, waddling in our life jackets back to shore. Grip over grip, I pull up slimy rope until the crab trap reaches the choppy surface. Benjamin beside me, small shifts, fist shaking, awaits our catch, shunning the algae that clings to the dripping line. His eyes widen at the creatures inside. Father says, "That one's big enough to eat." And Benjamin looks at me, his fearful eyes, jellyfish, crab, human. With summer heat, new boats arrive, outsiders with bloody knees and pocket knives, grind mussels under their heels, making jellyfish stew. Sea scum and fishy innards gray the water with morning. Gulls feast and tear at the spill on the dock. Mother shakes her head. Boys will be boys. I sit patiently at her feet, questioning what it means while she braids my hair and tisks at their warfare. Fishermen's children, Benjamin and I, soft as jelly, quick to shed our shells, too young to see how wonder hardens, but fails to protect.
Thank you. That last line is great. How wonder hardens but fails to protect. Just wondering at nature is not enough to protect it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much for your time and thanks for doing this.
No problem.
And good luck with your future submissions.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Portal Portfolio Series. Portal is a literary magazine published by students at Vancouver Island University's Creative Writing and Journalism Department on the territories of the Snuneymuxw, Quw'utsun, and Tla'amin First Nations. For more information about Portal's portfolio series, please visit portalmagazine.ca.